Hey y'all, let me show you how I do my banana nut bread. Welcome back y'all. I just want to share one of the recipes that my Granny Ross used to do. Every Sunday we'd go to visit and she always had some kind of bread made. This is just one of them. Alright, we're going to start off with 1 stick of room temp butter. I'm using unsalted. Drop down in there. We're going to go in with a cup of sugar. I'm just using a 1/2 cup measuring cup because that's what fits. Alright, we're going to get these two creamed up together. Alright, once your butter and sugar look something like that, you're going to add in 2 beaten eggs. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, an electric mixer works just as good. Let's get those big cut up. Alright, gonna dump them on in. You're gonna turn this back on and let it go. Alright, while our eggs is mixing with our butter and sugar, we're going to make our dry mix. It's going to be 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of baking soda. And then you're going to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. About right there. Will you give me a whisk, please? Alright, and you just want to whisk this together, and all you're doing is making sure that gets good mixed up before you dump it in your wet mixture. Because you don't want to be eating your bread and bite into a real salty piece. You want to taste that all throughout. Okay, our eggs are mixed in good with our butter and sugar. Now we're going to slowly start adding our flour mixture. And you want it to go on low. And the reason you want to do that, you don't want a cloud of flour going everywhere. You do it too fast, you'll have flour everywhere and be wiping everything down. Alright, once your flour is all mixed up, that's what it's going to look like. Now, we're going to go in and we're going to add 1/2 cup of sour cream. I know, thinking, sour cream, why are we adding that? But this is where you're going to get that moist cake bite from. Just scoop it just like that. Get that added down in there. I may add a little air bubble. About like that. And let's get that mixed in. Alright, now we're going to add in roughly a teaspoon of vanilla. If you want to, you can measure it out in the cap. I'm just going to pour it in. Right. Now you want to take 3 ripe bananas. Normally I like mine a little riper than this, but that's what I have. We'll make sure we get all them little stringy things off. There we go. Now you just want to take a fork and you're going to mash these bananas. This is a great recipe to do if you bought a bunch of bananas because the kids said they were going to eat them all and you end up with really ripe bananas left over. Now while you're doing all this, is a great time to preheat your oven. You want to preheat it to 350 degrees. Once you get all your bananas mashed, that's what it's going to look like, pretty much like baby food. And get that scraped on in there. Right. We're going to let this get mixed up. Alright, while we got this mixing up, we're going to add some walnuts, but we want them to be chopped. So what I'm going to use my food processor, switch it to the chop mode, and get these chopped up. If you don't have a food processor, you have a blender, that'll work just as well. If you don't have either one, you can use a mallet, take out some aggression. But remember, put a cutting board underneath. It's easier to replace a cutting board than it is a countertop. But you can just do that. That works just as fine. Let's get them poured on over in there. If you have somebody in your house that has a nut allergy, this is just fine without the nuts. If you don't want to do walnuts, pecans work just as good. Alright. Now that's the consistency I like. And we're going to get those dumped right on over in there to our batter. Just let it stir it up real quick for us. Alright, you're going to take you a 9-inch loaf pan, or if you want to, find you the little loaf pans, and you can use them, and you can freeze what you don't want. But you want it to be greased, so I'm just going to take some Crisco. Now if you don't have Crisco, just regular old cooking spray will work. But I'm going to grease the inside of mine. Get our beater cleaned off the best we can. Before I pour my batter, I just like to make sure I'm scraping the bottom, making sure everything's gotten mixed up as it's been going. Oh yeah. Alright, we're going to get our batter poured over into our pan. Oops. Another way to do this would be making muffins. If you didn't want to do loaves, muffins work just as good. And you can freeze them too. Take them out as you need them. Alright. Now as you can see, our pan's about full. That's fine. It's going to rise just a little bit. But let's get it in our oven, and it's going to bake from 50 to 55 minutes. Alright y'all, we got it out of the oven. We let ours go for 50 minutes. Now we're going to let it sit and cool for about 10 minutes before we try to flip it out. Alright y'all, moment of truth. Let's try to flip it out. Hey, that couldn't have went any smoother. Alright y'all, let's get this thing flipped over. Ooh, look at that. Now you know we got to try a piece, especially while it's warm. Look at that. Well, before I take a bite, I just want to thank y'all for tuning back in again this Wednesday. And I hope to see you again next Wednesday. If you got any recipe ideas, put them down in the comments. Let's give us a bite. Lord have mercy, that's good.